Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The derelict research station spun slowly in the black, its lights long since dimmed and its life support systems silent. Jorin Marl guided the salvage runner, Twilight Wanderer, into docking alignment with practiced calm, though his heart pounded against his ribs. Rumors had spread through the salvage collective of strange vessels turning up empty, sometimes with their crews missing, sometimes reduced to twisted wreckage. The distress beacon from Station Orion 7 had sounded like a simple retrieval job, but something in the signal's erratic pulse set his teeth on edge. He clamped the boarding hatch and stepped into the station's airlock, the hiss of leaked atmosphere chilling his bones. The corridor beyond was bathed in cold blue emergency lights, walls scorched and streaked with dark stains. Every footstep echoed, promising danger. He checked his sidearm and signaled Engineer Novice Redmark to stand by on the comm link. Novice's voice crackled with static. "I'll monitor from the hangar." "You want drones up?" Jorin shook his head, though Novice couldn't see. "Hands on," he whispered. "Something tells me a drone won't spot what I'm looking for." Further down the passage, he found signs of struggle, wall panels torn free, twisted cables hanging like broken veins. A flicker of movement caught his eye, a crimson stain on the floor that pulsed with fresh heat. He slipped off his gloves and knelt, tracing the smear toward the research wing. Around the corner, a low moan froze his breath. Before him lay a containment bay, the transparent door cracked and splintered, wires sparking. Inside, strapped to a biobed, was the source of that moan, a slender figure with luminescent skin the color of storm clouds, hair swirling like living mist. Her eyes, pools of molten silver, fluttered open at his approach. "Help!" Her voice trembled, the syllables reverberating strangely through the glass. Jorin knelt beside the bed, his fingers dancing over the controls. The locking clamps retracted with a hiss, and he slid the straps free. The moment her weight lifted from the bed, the lights around them flickered, and died. Darkness swallowed the room except for the faint glow of the girl's skin. He cut his flashlight beam to her face. "I'm Jorin Marl." "Can you walk?" She winced but nodded. Her limbs were frail. He supported her as she slipped into consciousness, her luminous gaze fixed on him with gratitude and fear. The station lurched, metal groaning. "They're coming," she rasped. "Get me out." Behind him, the corridor thrummed with distant footsteps and the pulse of armored suits. He half carried, half led her through the wrecked halls, keeping to shadows. Each corner brought new hazards, zero-G sections where the gravity drive had failed, flooded chambers where toxic coolant pooled beneath overturned consoles. The station's security drones, once docile, now spat electric arcs at them, corrupted by an unknown override. Jorin shot the nearest unit sensor array, then smashed its core with the butt of his pistol. The explosion flung him backward against a wall. Celine Core staggered, pain flickering across her eyes. Jorin hauled her upright. "We have to move," he hissed, pulling her toward the maintenance shaft. They crawled through the cramped ductwork, sealed by smoldering vents and broken cables, until they emerged near the station's cargo hangar. The sky beyond the open bay doors was ink-black, studded with distant stars. Beneath them, the Twilight Wanderer lay ready, its ramp lowered. As they dropped onto the hangar floor, alarms blared. Red strobes painted the walls. Celine paused, placing a trembling hand on Jorin's chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to." Before she could finish, the ship's hull thrummed with a powerful shockwave. The boarding ramps of two sleek interceptors slammed into the station's hull, cutting power to half the decks. Helplessly, Jorin watched as Celine's eyes flared brighter. Her fingers brushed the console of a nearby freighter module, and the lights pulsed back to life, not in the station, but on the interceptors. He saw their energy banks surge, weapon systems calibrate. The invaders' suits powered down. Within seconds, the interceptors hung limp, tethered only by docking clamps. He stared at her, heart racing. She looked away, fear mingled with something else, determination. I had no choice, she murmured. They were going to kill me. Jorin lifted his chin. Get on board, he said, voice steady despite the shock. I'll deal with these hull blocks. She slung an arm around his shoulders and limped toward the Wanderer. Once inside the cockpit, Jorin slid into the pilot seat and powered up the NAV console. Celine moved to the engineering bay, touching panels with her fingers. The ship's hum shifted, as if greeting an old friend. Jorin punched the release on the station's docking clamps and engaged thrusters. The station fell away, then exploded in a fireball that painted the void orange. Celine emerged from below, eyes troubled. You saved me, she said softly. Now I'm going to repay you. Jorin turned. I'm no one's pawn, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. She gave a small, sad smile and vanished into the corridors. On the view screen, the wreckage of Station Orion 7 shrank into a glowing orb, and Jorin wondered just what he had brought aboard the Twilight Wanderer. The Twilight Wanderer drifted through the black sea of uncharted star lanes, its once familiar hum now punctuated by sporadic flickers of warning lights. Jorin Marl sat hunched at the pilot console, one hand resting on the throttle arm, the other tapping a rhythmic code against the metal armrest. He watched the forward sensor arrays cycle through static images of distant nebulae, each frame tinted by a greenish haze. The ship felt uneasy, as though it had caught a fever. He frowned, recalling Celine Cor's last words, "You're going to deal with these hull blocks." He rubbed his temples, trying to shake off the lingering dread. Across the deck, Novice Redmark's voice crackled through the comm link. Jorin, I'm still chasing ghost signatures in the NAV computer. Whatever she did with the station's power grid, it's reverberating through our subroutines. Novice was never flustered, her calm tone usually put Jorin at ease, but today her voice betrayed the slightest tremor. I need more time to isolate the breach. Jorin leaned back, closing his eyes. Time is exactly what we don't have, Novice. We picked up a distress beacon 2 jumps back, and if that syndicate tracks it down, we'll be in their crosshairs before we can blink. He opened his eyes and tapped his mic. Alwyn, status on the drives. Alwyn Stark's confident reply came almost immediately. Engines are holding at 58% efficiency. We lost the tertiary coil module when the station exploded. I've rerouted power through the auxiliary grid, but it's stressing the jump drive. If we try another fold in this state, we risk a cascade failure. Her voice was precise, measured, an indicator of her nerves. The trio huddled on the command deck, illuminated by the glow of malfunctioning holoscreens. Novice crossed her arms, her brow furrowed under the low light. Whatever Celine did, she left an imprint in our systems. It's like a virus, but adaptive. Every time I quarantine a corrupted node, another appears elsewhere. She swiped at a display, isolating a series of erratic data streams. I think it's mapping our network, learning our architecture. Jorin rubbed his chin. Mapping, you mean she can control the ship from inside? His stomach twisted. He thought back to Station Orion 7's final moments, the way Celine's eyes had glowed as she reached for the console. Could she be rewriting the code on the fly? Novice nodded. Exactly. She's embedding her biosignature in the core processes. We're lucky the basic life support loop isn't compromised yet. But oxygen recirculation is oscillating, pressure spikes, cabin temp drops. If she gains full control, she could override safety protocols. Alwyn paced near the viewport, arms folded. So what do we do? We can't just cut power to everything. I've seen Novice's black box failsafes override manual shutdown. The ship will keep running on ghost commands until it melts down. She turned to Jorin, eyes bright. We need to confront her directly. She's in engineering, right? A terse silence fell. Celine had been quiet since they escaped the station, retreating to the lower decks. Jorin had not seen her since she touched the ship's core. A part of him feared what he might find. He gave Alwyn a curt nod. We move as a team. Novice, prepare an isolation protocol. Alwyn, keep the engines in standby. I'll meet you at the engineering access hatch. The engineering bay lay 2 decks below the command center. Its walls were lined with intricate power conduits and emergency coolant valves. The faint scent of ozone lingered in the recycled air. Jorin approached the hatch, Novice's portable diagnostics unit cradled under his arm. The hatch's indicator light flickered from green to red, then off entirely. He tapped the panel. Celine. We need to talk, his voice echoed. Static hissed through the corridor speakers. A moment later, the hatch slid open, revealing a dimly lit chamber. At its center stood Celine Core, her lithesome frame draped in a simple jumpsuit she'd improvised from scavenged fabrics. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as she turned. You came, she said, voice soft yet resolute. Jorin swallowed. We need answers. Novice and Alwyn are tracking anomalies, life support, navigation, weapon systems. Every major subsystem is keyed to your biosignature. Why? Celine's expression flickered between sorrow and determination. I didn't choose this, she whispered. When they tortured me, they broke more than my body. They destroyed my family's legacy. This ship gave me a chance to survive, she gestured to the conduits around her. I reached out for power, just enough to escape. But the imprint grew. I didn't realize how deeply I'd woven into the fabric of this vessel. Jorin clenched his fists. You nearly killed us. You hijacked our escape route. His voice cracked. We could have died. Tears glistened in Celine's eyes. I'm sorry. But it was the only way to block the Syndicate's tracker. They would have slaughtered you to find me. And if they did, they would have sold me back to the labs. She stepped closer, breath ragged. I only wanted to keep us alive. Novice's voice came over Jorin's calm, we're ready. Isolation protocol is prepped. If you seal her off, we can purge the biosignature. But if she's as integrated as we think, we might lose engineering entirely. Alwyn added, and then the ship dies. Silence stretched. Jorin looked from Celine's pleading face to the diagnostics rig in his arms. The weight of command pressed down. He eased the rig onto the floor. Show me. Celine nodded and placed a hand on the core interface. Tendrils of bioluminescence spread across the panel, like roots seeking nourishment. The lights in the chamber pulsed to the rhythm of her life force. Jorin thrust the diagnostic unit forward, its scanners whirred, illuminating data streams only Novice could decode. Numbers cascaded down the display, energy flux rates, qubit entanglement values, neural overlay matrices. She's rewriting the ship's firmware in real time, Novice said, voice tinged with awe. It's unprecedented. She's merging her biology with our tech, creating a hybrid interface. The realization hit Jorin with the force of a meteor impact. Celine was no mere stowaway. She was a symbiont. Celine's voice trembled. I can accelerate repairs, optimize fuel cycles, even amplify our shields. Let me help you. We can outpace the Syndicate dreadnought. We can save countless lives. Lord, Jorin thought. What she offered was beyond any salvage contract, a ship faster and stronger than any warship in the Outer Rim. But at what cost? He glanced at Novice and Alwyn, whose faces reflected equal parts fear and fascination. If we let you, we relinquish control, Jorin said quietly. You become the captain of the Twilight Wanderer. Celine looked down. I don't want your ship. I want to survive. And to find the rest of my people. She lifted her head, eyes blazing. Help me reach Corex. Then you can do whatever you want. The corridor lights flickered. The ship's voice system crackled, a new, soft undertone weaving through the speakers. Celine closed her eyes. That's me. I'm everywhere now, the gloom shimmered as panels flickered to life, pumping new power through damaged conduits. Alwyn stepped forward. This is the edge of human and alien tech. If we can harness her, we could challenge anyone. Novice shook her head. But if she turns on us? Jorin held up a hand. We set terms, his decision formed like a crystal. We'll let you optimize systems to drain the syndicate's pursuit vectors. But we maintain manual overrides. And we set coordinates. We decide when we jump. Celine's gaze softened. I agree, she extended a hand, her fingers luminescing. We work together. Jorin shook her hand. A surge of energy hummed through his nerves. He felt his heart skip, but it settled to a steady rhythm. Novice and Alwyn released breaths they hadn't realized they were holding. Later, the three congregated in the makeshift mess hall, the ship's hum steadier now. Novice studied the diagnostics logs. Fuel efficiency improved by 32%. Shield recharge cycles cut in half. Hull integrity restored to 87% from 53%, she tapped the console. This is incredible. Alwyn leaned back. And the engines, when we tested them just now, we shaved 2 minutes off transit time between hyperspace waypoints. Jorin nodded, swirling a mug of synthetic coffee. We're gray runners again. He glanced at Celine, who sat quietly at the far table, her skin casting a soft glow on the grated floor. But whatever we accomplish, we do it on our terms. Celine smiled, a small, genuine curve. Thank you. Novice looked up. Next jump, we target the Corax sector. I'll chart a course that avoids known patrols. Alwyn cracked a grin. And I'll give this ship the fastest fold in salvage history. Jorin raised his mug. To new alliances. They clinked their cups. The lights dimmed for a heartbeat, then brightened, now solid and unwavering. The Twilight Wanderer purred with renewed purpose, its crew poised at the edge of rebellion and revolution. Beneath the hum, a new directive pulsed: overcome the syndicate, rescue the Corax, and chart a destiny that neither Wall of Shame nor wrecked Star Station could ever contain. The mess hall of the Twilight Wanderer remained hushed after the previous hours of revelations. Jorin Marl leaned over the polished table, his fingers brushing the surface of the decrypted memory sphere. Novice Redmark hovered beside him, her diagnostics rig still humming softly, while Alwyn Stark stood near the viewport, watching distant stars drift by. Celine Core sat quietly on a crate repurposed as a seat, the soft glow of her dermal luminescence illuminating the worried lines on her face. The low hum of the ship's engines felt comforting and ominous at once, comforting because it meant the vessel could still move at Celine's behest, ominous because the syndicate dreadnought was now surely on their tail. We need to peer into these memories, Jorin murmured. They hold the coordinates we need to find your home. Celine nodded, folding her hands. I'll guide you, she whispered, voice trembling. Novice placed the probe atop the sphere, its crystalline prongs unfolding to cradle the alien artifact. Stand by, she said, as the rig's lights winked from blue to green. The memory probe activated with a low harmonic resonance that thrummed through the metal plating beneath their feet. Translucent data tendrils unfurled from the sphere, coalescing into a shimmering holographic interface above the table. Celine's memories flickered to life in fractured vignettes, crystalline statues ringing a marble plaza, fleets of ships slicing through violet nebulae, and towering war machines carved from living stone. Novice tapped at the hollow controls, isolating segments tagged by Celine's neural imprint. I'm capturing raw memory frames, she said. We can reconstruct the sequence from here. As the fragments aligned, Jorin watched Celine's eyes close, her breathing slowing. Each recollection was a blade cutting through her calm exterior, slicing away hope and pain in equal measure. The first clear scene that emerged showed a screaming red sky over the planet Corax's capital city. Celine's voice quavered as she narrated, this was the eve of the final uprising. The Corax resistance had rallied every settlement on the rim. We believed our cause would ignite the galaxy. The image showed hundreds of resistance fighters, tall, lithe beings with ethereal armor, marching beneath banners that writhed like living vines. Then the vision shattered as the Interstellar Syndicate unleashed their dread engines, gouts of cerulean fire consuming every street, every citizen. Jorin's stomach tightened. Novice's jaw clenched. Alwyn's hand drifted to her sidearm. They watched in silence as the Syndicate's assault obliterated hope in a matter of seconds. Celine's voice pierced the stunned quiet. I was the last to escape. My family, they stayed to cover my retreat, tears shimmered in her eyes. The holographic scene changed to a memory of Celine's parents, tall leaders bearing jeweled staffs that pulsed with energy. They raised their arms in a final protective gesture as the blue firestorm closed in. They died, Celine rasped. To give me this chance. And with them, my dreams of peace. She looked down at her hands, their faint glow flickering. Jorin reached across the table, placing a steady hand on hers. I'm so sorry, he said, voice catching. Celine's lips trembled, but she squeezed his hand, stealing her composure. Novice redirected the probe to a deeper layer, seeking coordinates embedded in Celine's genetic code. I'm reading geospatial markers, she announced, her fingers dancing across the hollow interface. The homeworld's orbital grid has been scrubbed from most maps. But these markers line up with at least 2 potential safe zones. Alwyn rushed forward, pointing to one flickering waypoint. This cluster, she said, lies beyond the Syndicate's patrol routes. If we jump there, we might slip past their blockade. Jorin studied the schematics etched in midair, a web of star lanes, nebula curtains, and gravitational eddies. Good, he said. Plot the route, Novice. Alwyn, ready the engines for ascended fold. The 2 women sprang into action. While Novice and Alwyn worked, Jorin took Celine aside, leading her to a quiet corridor. They paused beneath the low hum of cooling pipes. Celine traced a finger along the grated plating. You confront the Syndicate for me, she said softly, eyes downcast. Why? Jorin asked. She looked up, her eyes silver. Because you saved me. And you have the courage to stand against them. My people could have destroyed a world to survive. But if you help me now, we stand a chance of building something new. Jorin's chest tightened. He remembered drilling through wrecked hulls, ripping through security drones to save her. We'll do more than survive, he said. We'll fight back, on our terms. Celine nodded, a fragile spark igniting in her gaze. In engineering, Novice isolated the final piece, a crystalline map encoded in Celine's DNA. With each passing cycle, the ship's systems hummed with Celine's resonance, as though greeting an old ally. Jorin entered with Alwyn as Novice began transferring the geomarkers into the NAV core. Transfer complete, Novice said. But there's an audio log here, encrypted in your speech patterns. Celine swallowed, her glowing aura pulsing faster. Play it, she whispered. Novice complied, and the mess hall was filled with a recording, Celine's voice layered with static and sorrow. She recounted the night Corax fell, begged for allies in the void, and promised vengeance upon the Syndicate. Every word carried the weight of her planet's destruction. Jorin steadied himself. You recorded this? He asked. Celine nodded. I hid it in my mind, hoping someone would hear it if I made it out. If we can broadcast it, maybe we can rally other systems. Novice frowned. Broadcasting from hyperspace risks our signature being traced. If the Syndicate picks up the signal, they'll know exactly where we jump. Alwyn added, we need cutoffs, limit transmissions to short bursts. But we can't risk open comms, Jorin considered. They needed allies. The Corax resistance might still have hidden cells scattered across the outer rim. We do it selectively, he decided. A coded beacon that we activate only when we're within sensor range of known sympathizers. As they finalized the plan, the ship shuddered, electrical arcs dancing along the walls. Novice cursed. She's integrating deeper, she said. Your memories are fueling the engine weave. It's beautiful but precarious. Celine stepped forward, placing her hand on the sublight pulse drive. I can stabilize it, she offered. Jorin glanced at Novice and Alwyn, both nodding. He sighed. "We'll need you, Celine." "But if you falter," she met his gaze. "I won't," she vowed. The dreadnought arrived on long-range scanners, a silhouette of dark metal etched against the stars, its dread drums pulsing like war beats. Alwyn activated the tactical interface, plotting evasive maneuvers around gravity wells and nebula curtains. Novice finalized the geomarkers in the flight plan. Celine closed her eyes, her dermal glow surging. "Ready for the fold," she announced. Jorin took a deep breath. "All stations, brace for jump, 3, 2, 1, the stars streaked as the Twilight Wanderer folded. Moments later, they emerged within an uncharted sector of cloud-like nebulae, the ship's hull crackling as ion storms brushed against the shields. Ahead lay a rocky moon ringed by crystalline spires, one of the safe havens hidden in Coryx's memory. Relief flooded the deck. Novice cheered softly. Alwyn punched her fist. Jorin exhaled. Celine hovered beside him, eyes shining. They had outrun the syndicate, at least for now. But as the coordinates locked and the engine settled, Jorin sensed a new urgency. The dreadnought could be closer than the scanner suggested. He turned to Celine. "This is where we begin the true fight," he said. "We'll salvage what remains of your people, and reclaim Coryx's legacy." Celine nodded, a fierce resolve spreading through her features. Together, they stepped onto the bridge's observation deck, ready to face the rebellion's roots, and the reckoning that awaited them. The liminal sector stretched before the Twilight Wanderer like a void torn open, streaked with drifting debris and specters of extinguished suns. Long-range scanners crackled as the dreadnought of the Interstellar Syndicate burned into sensor range, its immense frame draped in black armor plates shimmering with cerulean runes. Hull lights flared against the dark, and engines thrummed in ominous chorus. Celine Core crouched beside Jorin Marl in the pilot's booth, her luminescent skin casting ghostly patterns on the glass. Despite her outward calm, her pulse hammered through the ship's neural weave. Jorin stared as the dreadnought's dread drums echoed through the calm bridge and the hull of its display. "They're hailing us," he murmured. Novice Redmark tapped at the helm controls, isolating the comm channel. The cold voice of Commodore Sarkisung cut through the static. "Surrender the Coryx survivor or we vaporize your ship." Alwyn Stark locked her fingers around the throttle, her knuckles whitening. A haze of tension settled over the deck as life support module heaters clicked on and off. Every sensor node, once under Celine's gentle sway, now screamed warnings. The dreadnought's broadside turrets swiveled in unison, coveting the Wanderer's fragile flank. Distant comm bursts rippled through the void, transmissions from hidden fleets as they prepared for conflict. Inside the Wanderer, the crew faced the moment of truth, compliance, or battle. Jorin stood, meeting Novice's gaze. "We fight," he said, voice low and steady. Celine looked torn, her eyes flickered with guilt and fierce resolve. She had warned him the dreadnought would find them, but she believed they could outmaneuver and outthink the Syndicate's warship. Novice pulled up the schematic of the ship's defensive grid on a hologram. "Shields are reinforced, but only on certain sectors. We can reroute power from secondary conduits to the dorsal array, but that will disable our aft life support vents." Alwyn folded her arms. "We'll live," she said. "Prepare the plasma turrets and reactive mirage flares. If they close in, we'll fry their leading edges." Jorin nodded. "And deploy the trap drones. Send them out in concentric arcs. We'll bait them in before we strike." Celine pressed a hand to her chest. "I can enhance the drones' navigation. I'll guide them past their point-of-origin filters." Novice keyed commands and the ship shuddered as power diverted. The corridor lights pulsed with each reroute. In the maintenance decks, Alwyn and Novice led a skeleton crew, scavenger bots, hacking modules, and improvised charge packs, through steel bulkheads. They laid tripwire charges along the hull, rigged the airlocks with remote detonators, and stationed encrypted beacons to monitor dreadnought borders. Each crew member moved with disciplined urgency, voices hushed: "Ready the gravlifts, seal the secondary decks, prepped the engineer's welder rouge. Beneath it all, Celine's presence hung through the conduits, coaxing circuits back to life and sealing microfractures. Jorin circulated among them, offering nods and quiet reassurance. Outside, the dreadnought drifted in eclipse formation, its silhouette eclipsing distant stars like a harbinger of oblivion. Time slowed. The crew braced for impact. As the boarding time approached, Celine accompanied Jorin back to the bridge. She traced her fingers over the NAV console. "I've carved a backdoor into their tether link," she whispered. "If they attempt a forced jamming lock, I can scramble their override protocols for 30 seconds, Jorin studied her face. And after 30 seconds, she looked down. Then we lose it all, a lonely silence enveloped them. Over the comm, Novice counted down, T-10 seconds to breach, Jorin inhaled. "Celine, if I give you command for the breach window, will you keep us safe?" She met his gaze, determination warring with vulnerability. "I'll protect every soul on this ship," she vowed. Jorin nodded and toggled the command protocols. Control flickered in Celine's grasp as her hands hovered over the augmented interface. In the void, the dreadnought's acceleration thrusted against the Wanderer's bow. The boarding clamps extended like metallic fingers, clicking into place. Sparks flew where the clamps met reinforced plating. The ship jolted, alarms blaring. On the command deck, Celine's eyes glowed bright as she leached stray energy from the dreadnought's magnetic locks, melting them away. Each pulse of her mind clashed with the Syndicate's core directives: override, assimilate, destroy. Outside, stasis field projectors locked onto the walkways, each connector humming with lethal energy. Novice shouted, "They're sealing the boarding tubes. Time to trigger the eject." "Alwyn, get the supports ready." Over comm, the boarding hatch release charge detonated, flinging the docking corridor loose and drifting into the void. Handfuls of Syndicate troopers tumbled free, screaming and flailing in 0G, the dreadnought shuddered at the sudden loss. But the effort triggered a counterstrike. The dreadnought's Gatling plasma turret opened fire. Fiery arcs shredded the outer hull plating, lancing through the corridor walls. The crew ducked for cover as conduit valves burst and steam hissed. Jorin slid across the deck, grabbing Celine's hand. "We move now," he yelled. Celine nodded, tapping a neural cascade to the complement of combat bots. The little machines crawled along the hull bedecked with micromissiles and proximity charges. "They'll draw fire," Celine said, voice urgent. "I'll follow with a phase shift pulse." The bots swarmed the dreadnought's underside, lighting timers that pulsed like warning sirens. A moment later, a series of muted detonations rippled through the enemy hull, enough to cripple its forward shields. "Direct hit," Alwyn cheered. The dreadnought recoiled, buckling under its own shield cascade. On the control deck, Celine and Jorin confronted each other at the core interface. Her luminescence flared as data streams spiraled around them. "You've grown strong," she whispered. "But this mind is not yours to command." Jorin gripped the console rail. "I never asked for your power," he said. "But we share this ship." The holographic core rippled with neon runes and ghostly command tokens. Celine's voice echoed in both neural nets. "Yield now." Jorin clenched his jaw. He tapped the manual override, an ancient kill switch hidden behind provisional codes. Celine's eyes flickered red as she unleashed a cry through the weave. The core bristled with energy as their wills entangled, each trying to excise the other from the ship's essence. Their duel transcended flesh. Code and consciousness collided in a mental landscape of data fields and bioluminescent memories. Jorin glimpsed Coryx's ruined temples and Syndicate dread engine drives in his mind's eye, as if he had lived them. Celine caught echoes of salvage stores and vengeful boarding parties. Every thought became weapon, memories of love and loss, desperation and hope, sharpened into blades of pure intent. Outside, the ship's lights pulsed in tandem with their struggle, corridors flickering between darkness and brilliant azure. Novice and Alwyn watched helplessly as the bridge melded into a mental battleground, each flux of electricity steering the ship toward collapse or escape. With a final effort, Jorin summoned Celine's parents' sacrifice, rekindled their protection aura encoded in her fracture memories, and wrapped his will around it. A pulse of empathy surged through the interface, resonating with Celine's bioluminescent core. She gasped, her hands lifting from the controls. The oppressive hum receded. Jorin exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. "It doesn't have to be domination," he said softly. "We can share the command." Celine's skin shimmered between silver and blue. She nodded, tears strobing across her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I feared losing myself." Jorin reached out, his hand brushing her cheek. "We'll find ourselves together." Outside the ruined dreadnought, the boarding bots had triggered a 6-minute engine collapse. The enemy ship drifted inert, its power dwindling. Novice routed a controlled vent to ignite the residual plasma, lighting the darkness with distant starfire as the dreadnought cracked and fractured. Alwyn keyed the final Septagon code. "We're clear," she announced. The wandering crew, battered and breathless, surged through the control deck and observation rings. Celine joined them, her glow faint but steady. On the view screen, the dreadnought broke apart, drifting into the void, no threat to their journey. Jorin placed a hand on Celine's shoulder. Fatigue and relief warred in his heart. "It's over," he said. Celine leaned into him. "For now," she answered. As the Twilight Wanderer limped away from the wreckage, the stars stretched past them in serene silence, an uneasy peace born from fire and sacrifice, setting the stage for their final voyage in Part 5. The crew gathered in the aft reprieve lounge, patched together from recycled panels and Spartan bunks, nursing minor injuries and trading exhausted glances. Novice stared at the cracked holoscreen that once displayed the dreadnought's power matrix, now it showed only static. Alwyn reclined on a welded bench, fingers tapping an absent rhythm on her thigh as adrenaline slowly drained from her veins. Celine sat cross-legged on the floor, her luminescent glow dimmed, gazing at the alloyed floor plates as if seeing them for the first time. Jorin leaned against the reinforced bulkhead, arms folded. The hush was punctuated only by the hum of life support and distant rumbles of the dying dreadnought. Jorin broke the silence. "We took the ship back," he said softly. "But at what cost?" Celine looked up, memories flickering across her eyes, images of derelict research labs, her fallen family, and the moment she first accessed the Wanderer's core. "I almost lost myself," she admitted. Alwyn gave her a half-smile. "But you fought," she said. Novice added, "and we fought alongside you." Celine's glow brightened slightly. "We are together," Novice nodded. "And now we need to jump to Corax. We can't linger here." Jorin surveyed his crew, battered, resolute, bound by their shared victory. The Wanderer's course hovered on the NAV console, an uncharted trail leading into the unknown. Celine rose and extended a hand. Jorin took it, feeling the familiar warmth of her energy. "Let's go home," she said. The phrase lingered in the cramped space, heavy with promise and fear. Jorin turned to Novice and Alwyn. "Set course for safe zone Amber 9. Jump in 10 minutes." Novice's fingers danced over the controls. Alwyn checked the shield modulators and nodding, sealed the aft bulkheads. Outside the porthole, the fragmented dreadnought drifted behind them, a testament to the price of resistance. Jorin watched the stars, resolved. In Part 5, we rescue the Corax survivors and reclaim the legacy we lost. Celine placed her hand on his arm. And we rewrite the fate of two worlds. With that, they prepared for their last jump, united and unbroken, hurtling toward a new dawn. The Twilight Wanderer slid out from the crackling nebula and into the muted light of Amber 9's orbital sanctuary. Once nothing more than a fragmented legend whispered by Corax escapees, the cluster of crystalline asteroids now served as a hidden refuge. Jorin Marl stood at the helm, watching Novice Redmark calibrate the descent thrusters against the gravity well. Around them, life support systems hummed, stabilized by Celine Core's intricate weave of biotech and engineering finesse. With each adjustment, the ship settled into the gravity shadow, its hull rippling against small electromagnetic currents. As the boarding ramps extended, Alwyn Stark activated the external tractor beams to clamp cargo modules in place. The crew prepared to distribute landing pods, each containing supplies, protein rations, water synthesizers, medikits designed by Novice's field team, to the waiting survivors. Jorin felt the weight of responsibility tighten in his chest. The Syndicate's tyranny had left thousands of Korax without home or hope. Tonight, for the first time in decades, they would taste sanctuary. The gentle sway of Ambernine's rock formations glistened like a silent choir, waiting to welcome them. In the main docking bay, clusters of Korax emerged from battered shuttles and rusted escape pods. They were gaunt, their ethereal armor tattered, eyes reflecting a lifetime of loss. Celine approached a trembling pair, a mother clutching her child, both with skin the color of dusk. Kneeling beside them, Celine's glow softened, and she whispered words of comfort in her native tongue. The survivors paused, suspicion mingling with relief. They had heard of human saviors before, only to be handed over to Syndicate slavers. This time, they hesitated. Jorin stepped forward, arms raised in a gesture of peace. "We are your allies," he said quietly. His voice carried through the bay's calm speakers. "We will not deliver you to chains." His words landed like stones across the survivors' tentative hope. A murmur rippled through the cluster, a mixture of relief and lingering fear. One elder, his horns broken from battle, stepped forward. "How do we trust you?" he asked, voice like gravel. Jorin met his gaze, steady. "By our actions," he replied. "Tonight, we share what we have. In the morning, you decide whether to stay." Novice circled the gathering with her portable scanner, mapping biosigns and vitals. She distributed Regan serums and immune supplements, explanations flowing in halting Korax dialect courtesy of Celine's whispered translations. As the survivors drank and ate, their shoulders lost stiffness, first-time smiles cracked through weathered faces. Novice recorded each name, each lineage, forging an inventory of souls to safeguard. "We will build life pods here," she announced, voice alight. "Modules that will shield you from radiation, recycle air, and grow food." The survivors exchanged glances. One by one, acceptance blossomed. Alwyn led a team to configure the landing pods into a makeshift village, stringing energy conduits between crystalline spires to power biospheres. She directed salvage bots to carve living quarters within cavernous hollows, layering insulation harvested from the dreadnought's wreck. Metal girders and reinforced polymers formed the skeleton of each dome. Above them, Ambernine's twin suns cast a gentle golden glow through suspended shards of crystal, painting the scene with quiet reverence. The survivors watched in awe as the hopeless cavern transformed into a nascent home. In the Twilight Wanderer's engineering bay, Jorin and Celine supervised the reconfiguration of the ship's aft hold into a mobile refugee ark. They welded additional life pods onto the trimaran frame, integrating Celine's biotech conduits to regulate temperature and run nutrient arrays. Novice programmed the central control node to catalog each pod's occupant and monitor environmental stability. The ship's hold swelled with carefully stowed seed banks and terraforming bacteria sourced from the Korax archives. With each piece interlocked, the Wanderer became both sanctuary and ark, a vessel of deliverance. A tense hush settled as the survivors filled the first pods. Jorin watched a young warrior delicately plant a grain of kinchale, a sacred Korax crop, into the hydroponic bed. Hope flickered across her angular features, fragile as butterfly wings. An elder knelt beside her, guiding her hand. Celine hovered near the open hatch, radiant light dancing across her arms as she whispered encouragement. "You are safe," she murmured. "We will guide you to new fields." The survivors bowed their heads, tears shimmering in their eyes. But unity hinged on fragile bonds. One faction of survivors, descendants of a militant cell, grumbled among themselves, eyeing the humans with open hostility. They believed humanity had abandoned them first, leading to the final cataclysm. The cell's leader, Omar Kin, stalked the docking ring, his crimson eyes narrowed. When Jorin approached him, Omar spat words of accusation. We survived alone, he hissed. Why trust you now? Jorin paused, recalling the silent sacrifices of Novice and Alwyn, the gamble he had made on Celine's honor. Because we are all that remains, he said. Alone, we perish. Together, we stand a chance. Omer's lips curled. We watch you. With that, he melted into the crowd. As dusk settled across Amber 9's horizon, Novice interfaced with Celine's genetic navigator. The two of them traced the route to Coryx's sheltered moon, safe zone Ember Circle, where scattered resistance cells still held ground. Their plan, to scatter arc pods across the system, broadcasting encrypted beacons as they passed. The survivors would anchor themselves to stable orbits, resettling sectors abandoned for centuries. Jorin briefed Alwyn on the hyperspace vectors required, plotting jumps that skirted Syndicate patrol funnels and gravitational eddies. Every course correction weighed the well-being of hundreds. In the control deck, alarms shivered, distress pings from a nearby moon. Alwyn tapped the sensors. Refuge shackles, she said. Old riot cages used to quarantine infected, still broadcast emergency signals. Jorin frowned. Could be Syndicate traps. Novice scanned further. The signal pulsed in wakening rhythm, carrying the names of clusters of survivors, people still alive. Beyond them, faint but tenacious. Celine placed her hand on the console. We can save them, she said. Jorin's heart clenched. Every resource was stretched: food, water, power. Devoting pods to unknown survivors risked starving those already aboard. Yet the Coryx code demanded aid. He inhaled. We help them, he ordered. But we adapt the pods. Make them modular. Novice and Alwyn exchanged glances and nodded. Hours later, arc pods glided into orbit around the moon, plasma burner jets lighting the dark. Survivors in salvage suits trailed nets of repurposed cables, pulling the pods down. Celine beamed through the viewport, guiding Jorin's maneuvers with atomic precision. Within each pod, supplies were carefully rationed, gravity calibrated to ease recovery. One by one, they docked at the battered station, automatic laughter and tears echoing across the comm channels as new Coryx families emerged. The Ark expanded, a living organism made of metal and hope. But the Dreadnought's remnants drifted beyond the asteroid belt, a ghost echo of Syndicate fury. Its broken megastructure caught solar wind, casting specters of light across the pods. Survivors stared, unease gnawing. Novice recorded sensor logs, no movement, but passive scanners showed dormant core reactors. Alwyn frowned. We can't leave that thing intact, she said. One solar flare, one stray meteor, detonation could obliterate everything here, Jorin considered. The Ark pods, the landing village, hundreds of lives balanced on a blade. We rig it as a fail-safe, he decided. If they auto-reactivate, the sabotage charges go off. Novice and Celine set the timers, their foreheads creased with concern. They routed the Dreadnought's salvage modules to manual release. As dawn broke on Amber 9, the survivors gathered at the cliff's edge, overlooking the crystalline lake where morning sun shimmered. Jorin stood at the forefront, Celine at his side, Novice and Alwyn flanking them. The Coryx elder who had first doubted them raised his staff, carved with ancestral symbols. He addressed the assembly in sonorous cadences. We were orphaned by war. Tonight, we forge new families. Tonight, we bind our fates together. The survivors cheered, a resonance of bells and scars, of pain and promise. Tears ran down Celine's cheeks, her glow gentle. Jorin felt his chest swell with a fierce pride. They pledged a treaty. Humans and Coryx would share the Twilight Wanderer as ark and shield. They would seed Amber 9's surface with kinchale and human crops. They would study each other's sciences and epics, weaving a tapestry of culture stronger than either alone. Novice smiled, tears of her own catching her lashes. Alwyn's eyes shone with exhilaration. Even Omerkin nodded gravely, extending his hand to Jorin. For peace, he said. Jorin gripped it. For a shared tomorrow. As the twin suns rose fully above Amber 9's horizon, the Ark shuddered, ropes braided across its underside releasing sabotage modules. The dreadnought salvage hulks groaned as their doors fell open, and microcharges pulsed through circuits left intact. A soft flare blossomed in the darkness, and the dreadnought's tattered bulk began to collapse inward, tumbling into a cascade of molten fragments. The survivors watched in awe as the ghost of tyranny disintegrated, sending shards of hope across the void. Celine's memory, propelled by Novice's genius and Alwyn's daring, captained by Jorin Marl's conviction. Together, they aimed for Ember Circle, the hidden moon cloaked by ancient veils, where seeds of rebellion would sprout and hope would grow. The stars stretched before them, silent witnesses to an uneasy alliance that had become a testament to survival, unity, and the enduring spark of two worlds intertwined.